I'll try to finish the discussion of as a tree traversal today, and if I still have time, then I will pick up properties. So I want to go back a little, okay, with respect to as a tree traversal. So let me share my screen first. And I'm sharing, right?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So GitHub, I have updated the recipe part. So inside Cascade, well, PHP Cascade WSNSF examples, there is a recipes folder, and inside recipes, there's a as a tree folder, and I have been like adding examples to this folder, and let me just go back to an issue that we actually talked about a moment ago. Eric, actually, oh, I mean Eric España. Sorry. Actually, when you have independent sites, there's something you can do, which you cannot do right now. For example, when you like start with a site, okay, that's why I have like list site, okay, inside this as a tree. When you have sites, okay, I'm talking about independent sites, you can actually first grab all the sites, okay, from Cascade, okay, and then you can like look through all the sites because everything is site-based, okay, so you can like start with a site object, and you can retrieve any asset tree of any container inside the site without worrying about like the path. This is what I'm trying to say, okay? For example, if you want to say, okay, I need to like visit every site, and then I need to visit every SF factory, let's say, and then examine, okay, whether the SF factories, okay, in question are hooked up with the proper group. Can they have like, well, are they like hooked up with the right plugin, things like that? And if you like do one humongous site, you can't really like do it systematically, because I mean, well, at Upstate, okay, we have like, as I told you, a site is paired with a group. So whenever I visit a site, I know, okay, how to deal with like as a factories, because I know the group name from the site name. So I can actually like look through all the sites, and then I can like do something to the SF factory container with respect to a group, and the group name is identical to the site name. So I don't need to worry about, okay, which folder I am, which group I'm dealing with. I visit a site and I know what the group is, and then I can directly go to the root SF factory container and do something to each individual SF factory. I don't need to worry about, okay, what kind of permission to grant to which SF factory. I don't need to worry about that. Do you see the difference here?
Yes. Well, what if you have? What if you want to assign site access to multiple groups?
Well, we don't do that unless we are talking about, for example, subgroups. We can have something like this, okay? Let's say we have a site called medicine. Then we have a group called medicine. And then if you have like subgroups, okay, let's say, okay, inside medicine you have like education, healthcare, blah, blah, blah. We normally name them medicine something, using medicine as a prefix. So I can always use the string itself or the prefix to deal with groups.
I see. Oh,
so
okay.
That's what I meant. You have to create patterns. You have to create some naming conventions that you can follow yourself, so that you don't need to worry about, okay, what goes with what.
Right. Okay.
But then, I mean, it depends on like one crucial setup, okay? You have to have like independent sites so that you can like loop through everything.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Now, this explains, okay, why I give you an example of like list site, okay, in as a tree. Okay, this is actually the beginning of like, well, for example, creating reports, or you do like mass edit, whatnot. You want to start with sites. So, for example, you can like search for something, or you can report like orphan files, or you can do mass edit. Okay, say replace the previous president's names. Okay, using the current president's name, something like that. So I can actually like start with like list all the sites, and then like look through all the sites and then do something to each site. So this example like shows you how to basically like, okay, get all the sites. Okay, this is simple. But I also want to highlight one thing, okay, that I need to talk about in a second. When you call Cascade get sites, I believe I told you the last time, this method doesn't return site objects. Instead, the method returns a whole bunch of child objects. The difference between a child object and a site object is this: a site, okay, contains all the information about a site, especially about, like, for example, abilities. So when you create, no, that's row. For a site, you have like CSS classes, you have like URL, the whole nine yard, okay, and the base folders and all the like the containers, the root level containers, and so on. So a site is a huge object. When I say, okay, Cascade get sites, if I return site objects, well, probably it will jam up the memory easily, okay? Especially at Upstate, we have like hundreds of sites, okay? So I don't want to do that. So instead, I return just child objects, and a child object just wraps up information about identification of the site. So it contains like the site name, the path, not the path of the site, but the site name, the ID, just a tiny piece of information, like pointing to the site, without including all the data of the site. Okay, so this get sites method only returns child objects. Now, let me go back to child, so that we can like talk a bit more about child. In the web services tutorial, and then let's see, in the intermediate course part, the second part of the course in my site, lesson 1 is about asset tree. That's the intermediate course, okay? And here I talk about like child and identifier. Identifier is just an empty subclass of child, so they mean more or less the same thing. Or you can say, okay, identifier is just a class alias of child. Here I talked about where you can find child objects in my library. So, for example, when you traverse a tree, okay, well, meaning you start with a container and then you traverse the assets inside the container, you see child objects. And then when you like call get children through a container, a folder, asset tree container, metadata set container, and so on, if you like use the container and then you call get children, then you get a whole bunch of like child objects. And then get subscribers returns an array of child objects. Get sites, okay, I've been talking about a moment ago, and it returns an array of child objects. Well, I use child and identifier interchangeably, okay, so they mean the same thing. And then later on, if we need to deal with like workflow or workflow settings, we need to deal with child objects or identifier objects. So we will see like the child objects in these contexts. Again, I just want to remind you, a child object is just a small piece of a small object containing some identification information. That's all. So it includes the type, the ID. If the asset has a path, then it contains the path, and then if it has a site name, then it contains a site name, and that's it.
That explains a lot.
For example?
I recently was experimenting with a script that read the subscribers or relationships of a content type, which are pages, and tried to check to see if they were set to publish or not.
Uh-huh.
And I kept getting an error, and I couldn't figure out why I had a page. I couldn't check that field, and it's probably because I had a child object
Yep.
instead of an actual page
Right.
asset from the
Right.
from the asset class.
Okay, and now to bridge the gap between a child and an asset, okay, just want to remind you, well, actually I talked about this last time, but just want to show you the interface again. So let us go back to child. So I'm looking at the class API of child. Okay, there's a method, okay, here, get asset. You just need to plug in the service object, then you get the asset. For example, if you're like talking about like get subscribers, okay, first you start with get subscribers. You get a whole bunch of like child objects representing pages, let's say. Then you can say, okay, whatever child, okay, whatever variable you have. And then you call the get asset method and you plug in the service object. Then you will have the page objects.
Gotcha. And you'll have all the fields, like is it publishable and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So if you are working with like get subscribers, get sites, or when you are traversing like a container, you are dealing with child objects. But if you need to like get back to whatever objects my library creates, okay, then you have to go through this get asset and then plug in the service object. Then you will get like page objects, blog objects, and so on.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So, I would say when you are traversing, let's say you are actually doing something, okay, to your Cascade instance, then I would say normally you want to like start with like get sites. If you want to do something to every site, okay, then you will start with like get sites, and then you loop through the array, okay, for every site you do something. Actually, from the site identifier, I'm talking about the child object returned by get sites, okay? You can get the site object, okay, by plugging in the service object. And then once you have the site object, you can get to any container you want. Actually, you don't need to go through the container. You just get any asset tree you want in the site. But it only works for sites, okay? That's why, okay, a moment ago I said, okay, if you have like folders, it won't work. You have to have independent sites in the first place. Once you have a site, then you can like get different asset trees from the site object, okay? So here, am I still sharing my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So here is one single site, okay, but you can like, okay, use like, you can like start with get sites, and then you have a for loop, and then for every site you get, okay, you plug in the service object, then you get a site object. So here we have a site object, okay.
Right.
Now from the site object you can get to any asset tree you want in the site. So you can get, okay, the asset tree representing the asset factory container, or the metadata set container, or the content type container, or the data definition container, anything you want, including the base folder.
Okay.
So from the site object, you can access actually the entire site, any container, by calling one of the corresponding get asset tree method.
That's powerful.
Yep. So from the site object, you can visit anything you want inside the site.
Well, except templates, right?
Why not templates?
Well,
templates are in a folder, right?
Right. Right. You have to know, or you have to search for the folder.
Well, if you don't know where the folder is, you start with the base folder. You traverse the base folder.
Right. Just check
all the templates will be visited.
Right. Oh, okay.
When you traverse the base folder, you need to plug in the type, okay, template types, okay, and then you plug in the function name. But you can just limit the traversal to templates.
That's right. Okay.
So
That's cool.
as long as you can start with the base folder or any root level container, you can visit anything in the site.
Nice.
Yep. But then, I mean, you have to have sites first. That's why I said, okay, it does make a difference.
Gotcha. Eric, who do we have here?
This is Annie,
Hi.
our little terrier.
Who?
She's incredible. She wants to learn more about web services.
Apparently, yes.
I am sorry. I'm in a recursive infinite loop, and I can't get out. Okay. I just want to see who we are dealing with. There's still 3. Okay. Oh, the dog. I didn't. What's the name of the dog again?
Annie,
Oh,
like as a little orphan. She's a stray that we
Annie.
found a couple
Okay.
years ago.
Okay.
Oh, that's nice. So,
Okay. That's
yeah.
that's the reason why in my asset tree recipes, okay, I include like how to list sites, how to get the containers, okay, from a site. But then, I mean, as I said it again and again, you have to start with sites first. That's why I asked, okay, Eric, why don't you like turn your humongous site into like independent sites, so that your web service will help you like simplify your life a lot.
Right. I can see that now.
Okay, let me share the screen again, and I am looking at GitHub.
Okay.
So I hope that you understand why and appreciate why I like include some seemingly irrelevant script, okay, in asset tree factory, asset tree traversal, okay. For example, like list site and like how to get the asset tree. And then last time I talked about like how to like list all the assets in a container. Here I like gave you an example how to like show the result when you traverse. Well, you're not traversing, okay? You just like create it as a tree, and then you can show the result. For example, you can show the all the assets in a container as a list, or you can show the XML. Okay, so you can actually list all the assets, okay, in the format of an XML. For example, for Google to use. So it's an XML file that you can like publish, for example, and then you can like give it to Google, and then like Google can like do something to your site. So you can actually like turn a base folder into like an XML file. It's basically a sitemap.
Very cool.
Again, I assume, okay, you are dealing with sites, okay, so I don't want to like give an XML of a humongous site, okay.
Right.
So
right.
These are simple methods that you can use to create either a list or an XML file to represent, for example, a site.
Very cool.
Next, I want to address the issue, okay, of like how to write global functions. And I want to remind you of one thing. You can actually create a global function, and then you can use the global function directly without using the traversal mechanism. So here, okay, the file name is called use global function, okay, at GitHub. Here I show you how to write some simple global function, and then how to test it by directly like calling the function without using the tree traversal mechanism. This is how you start your global function and test it without involving a lot of assets.
Oh, so you're just testing it with one?
Yep. I can call the function directly.
With one asset?
Yep, one asset at a time.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see
so
that.
I can plug in, for example, a page. I can plug in a folder. I can plug in a template, for that matter, to test the function. But I can deal with one thing at a time.
Oh, because you're turning it into a child object?
Yep, precisely.
I see.
So here, okay, I'm calling the function, okay, down here. And this function, like first, okay, takes like 4 different parameters. So I need to like supply the service object as the first one. And then I need to create a child object as the second one. And then I don't need to worry about the third and the fourth. So I just need to plug in, okay, some child object with the service object. Then I can test the function without worrying about too bogged down by a lot of assets and so on and so forth. And I can like deal with one asset at a time or one asset type at a time.
Yeah, that's a good approach.
Yep. Because I mean, when you traverse a tree, so many different things are happening, and if there's a bug or something subtle you need to like track down, it can be really hard. Every time when you run your program, it may take like minutes to finish, okay?
Yeah.
It is unacceptable. So you want to like just deal with one single asset, one at a time. And you might want to like deal with like one type at a time, okay? So you need to deal with like pages first, and then folders, and then blocks. You can like do that in this way. So you just like plug in whatever you need to test that type if you want to.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so again, I would say, okay, this is probably the best way to start like writing a global function and testing it without involving too many different asset types, assets, okay? This is the way to do it. If you understand what I've been talking about, then this will make more sense now. You can write a global function like this using a switch. So if you like have one global function, okay, to deal with like different types of assets, for example, you need to, for example, write a global function to search for blocks, search for pages, search for formats. I don't know, okay? You just want to like write one single function to search for different types of like assets. You can do something like this. So you can like first, okay, you get the type from the child object, and then you have a switch, okay? Do something to pages, do something to like folders, do something to files, and you can have like templates, asset factory, whatever. Of course, you won't mix, okay, pages with asset factories because they belong to different types of containers. But let's say if you are talking about a folder, okay, so you can have like blocks, formats, symlinks, references, and so on, okay, in folders. So you can have a long switch statement doing something slightly different, okay, with respect to what type of assets you are dealing with. Again, when you have something like this, you still want to use, you still want to be able to test this function using a single type, well, even a single asset. I would recommend, okay, well, start something like this and then do the single function call from the try, so that you can like call the function directly without doing traversal. Okay, and in this way you can like test, okay, you plug in a page, then the page part should fire. If you plug in a folder, then the folder part should fire, and so on. So you can like debug your global function like part by part without doing the traversal.
And in Wing, ultimately you would want to move this function to the, isn't there a global function section?
Yeah. Actually, there are 2 alternatives. You decide what to do. Okay, you can move your global function to that file, or you can keep it in your script. It's your choice.
Right.
It's about reusability. If you think, okay, the global function is reusable in the entire system, instead of like using it just in this script, then you should move it out. But if you think, okay, well, probably I will write only one program to do some specific thing, okay, and I always run this program, and the global function is not reusable, then you put it here.
Right. It's probably easier to keep it local for testing purposes.
Oh, testing, yes. But once you're done and you are sure, okay, it's reusable, then you should move it out.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Okay. And then I want to talk about returning. So this is a small function, but I just want to show you, okay, if you are dealing with just a small set of types, okay, for example, like just pages and folders, and you are ignoring everything else, let's say, then you should say, okay, you test the type. If the type is neither page nor folder, then you just return. Meaning, if you accidentally, okay, plug in something like this, okay, I won't do anything. And I won't even like traverse, well, I will traverse the folder, but I will ignore all those types if they are not defined down here. So you can actually plug in a lot of different things up here, okay? But as long as your function, okay, your global function doesn't deal with those types, they'll be skipped.
Okay.
So again, you have to like, because, okay, remember you write a global function and you write the code inside try. Well, you deal with whatever you want to plug in and whatever you want to deal with, okay? But I'm just saying, you should like consider doing something like this, okay, just to make sure to safeguard the code, okay? So you check the type, you just deal with whatever you need to deal with and ignore everything else.
Fair enough.
And if you have like a division of labor, so let's say you have like one function dealing with pages, one function dealing with folder, then probably you will need to like, well, remove this part, okay? Let's say this function is only used to deal with pages, then you need to remove the folder part out, okay? Remove it, and then create a second global function to deal with folders, for example.
Gotcha.
So the return mechanism will help you like safeguard, okay? You don't need to like deal with whatever you don't want to deal with. Even when you have like code like this, okay, you can actually like plug in a lot of types, okay, into your try block, okay? The reason being this, you might have a few global functions and accidentally you use the wrong name. Okay,
Sure.
so for example, if you have like one function to deal with pages, one function to deal with like folders, but somehow, okay, accidentally you call the page function to deal with folders, and you don't want to mess up cascade, okay? So to safeguard the mechanism, you need to check the type, okay, inside your functions. If it is supposed to be dealing with pages, then if it's not pages, just return. Get out, okay? Don't do anything. Then even if you like plug in the wrong name, nothing will happen.
Yeah, I think that's a really good suggestion. I could totally see myself accidentally doing that.
Yeah. Especially if you have like several functions on the same, like in the same program, and you just like copy and paste, okay, and like plug them in. Of course, you need to like do it like one by one, and then you have like direct function call, okay, and then test all the functions. But once you have done that, you have like some array like this, okay, but accidentally you might plug in the wrong name. So this will like at least, okay, safeguard your program. It won't do anything harmful.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it sounds like you've been the victim of that.
You don't know that, okay? About like 2 years ago when I started building my library, on the one hand, I was scared of the power of the library, but on the other hand, I was so excited, okay? I didn't even like think of like, okay, using a single function call to call something. I just like always like traverse the whole tree.
Right.
And sometimes I regretted it, okay? I was like doing something too fast.
Right. And so you're saying there's no undo method?
There's no undo. You have to be very careful when you traverse a container.
Yeah.
There's no undo.
There's no, you can't access the version control either, right? Through web services?
You can, but then you have to manually like go to the, let's say if you delete something, okay, you have to like go to the recycle bin. If you like change something, you have to go to version manually, okay, doing it like one by one.
You can't, right, that's what I mean. You can't do that through web services.
You cannot use web services to do that.
Right, yeah.
So you have to like be very careful. That's why I said, okay, first you start with one single asset, and then you test the global function. Once you feel comfortable, you pick a very small folder or small whatever container. You test it there. just in case, okay, when something goes wrong, you are dealing with a very small container, okay, it's easy to to turn it back. So don't ever traverse a site, okay, right at the beginning. Don't do that. I mean,
Right.
you regret it if you do it.
Yeah. Good advice. Very good advice.
Okay, so these are the the foundations or the beginnings of tree traversal. So you can start with listing all the sites, and then you start with you loop through all the sites, and from the site you can get any asset tree you want. And while you are doing that, I would like to recommend writing global functions to deal with some types of assets, and then you test the function using one single asset by directly calling a function, the global function, without using the tree traversal just yet. When you feel comfortable, then you pick a very small container, a small folder containing 3-4 pages, or a test, Always use a test folder if you want to, just create a folder, make a copy of a folder that you want to test, and then test it using the test folder without touching anything real. Once you feel comfortable, then you debug everything, then you can start with some larger folder, but never test it with a site, because if the site involves a lot of assets, there's no going back, unless you want to do it manually. So do it bit by bit, especially when you're dealing with asset tree traversal. You have to be careful about this. You have to start something small first. When you feel comfortable, when you think, everything is debugged, everything is clean, and you think, it's okay to run it, then run it with a folder. Don't run it with a site just yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good advice.
Then the recipe shows you other useful programs. For example, for example, you can combine the knowledge you have with respect to metadata. You combine that knowledge to deal with, for example, searching. This program shows you how to search for a certain flag in a metadata. So you can practically find all the pages with a certain flag, either checked or unchecked, or with a certain option selected, something like that. So you can find blogs, you can find pages, you can find whatever associated with some metadata folders. Then you can create a report, or you can actually modify all the assets along the way by looking at a certain field or a certain flag in the metadata.
When you say flag, you mean like a checkbox?
When I say, a checkbox or a radio button, but it can also be a select, a multi-select, or a drop-down. It can be anything. I'm just saying a certain value you want to examine. If the value exists, then you do something. If it doesn't exist, then don't do anything. Something like that.
Gotcha.
So, for example, you might want to, I don't know, I'm making things up, for pages, you might have a flag, to indicate, the category of certain news stories, for example. So you have categories in your metadata associated with pages. You can single out a certain group of pages, with a certain category, and then do something to them. I don't know what you want to do, but you can do something to every page of a certain category, for example.
Right. Gotcha.
So you can do something like this, or you can look at the data definition flag, meaning a structured data node here. So you can also look at a certain field, in the structured data. Again, it can be a checkbox, it can be a radio button, it can be anything, a text area or something like that. Then if the condition is met, then you do something. Right. So this is just a simple example showing you how to check a certain field or a certain node, and then you can determine what to do with an asset that meets this criterion.
Cool. Wing, do you have any scripts that search for, let's say, velocity scripts with certain string in the code?
That's easy, actually. I don't have velocity, but I have XSLT, but they are the same, okay?
Yeah.
So let's see. I just put it there today.
Because I noticed that the version, at least the version of Cascade that I'm using, it doesn't always find
Exactly,
things.
exactly. So this program will get called Search for Needle in Haystack. Here I use XSLT format, but you can use script format if you want to.
Sure.
And notice, okay, I write my own global function here. It's not in like the file global function. So you can write it any way you want, okay? I just like happen to write it this way. Notice, okay, I need to like plug in the method to get the string that I want to search. Remember, when you deal with an object, you can call a get method to get the data. For XML, I mean XSLT format, okay, it's the method called get XML to get the script.
Right.
But for velocity script, okay, I believe it's called get script.
Yeah, right.
So you need to like plug in the method name, okay, so that I can call the method to get the string.
Right.
And then like process the string.
Oh, that's cool. Nice.
So, but you don't have to do it this way, okay? You don't have to. You can actually like hard code your get whatever inside your global function. I just like happen to make it this way so that it's more flexible, more reusable. So for a text block, I can call get text. For a XSLT format, I call get XML. For script format, okay, meaning velocity, I can call like get script. So it's more flexible this way, but you don't have to do it this way.
So you define the haystack outside of the search functionality.
Yep.
So
you just need to tell me what method to call to get the string you want to search.
Got it. Well, that's going to come in handy.
Yep. So if you want to, you can use this script to search for velocity for whatever string you want to. But of course, okay, you need to like give me the correct get method. Otherwise, I mean, it won't return anything.
Right. I guess that kind of gives some insight into how, complicated search in Cascade must be.
Well, I would say for Cascade, I believe they search the database. They don't like search those objects. It is more efficient to search the database.
Right.
But then, if you know anything about the Cascade database, you know, okay, there are about close to 100 tables. And they have like a lot of linking tables, okay? You have like XML, one table just to store XML, okay? The XML can be from a template, can be from XSLT, can be from DataDefinition. Then you have to have like linking tables to join everything properly. That's why when you search, okay, it's very complicated, okay? You have to search a database. You don't want to like search those objects like from the back end. But then the database is so complicated. I don't know. It doesn't return. It doesn't always return, okay, what you want to search for. But if you are using web services, it's a lot slower, but it's more thorough.
Right. Gotcha.
You need to know, okay, it's a lot slower. It may take seconds, minutes to finish the job, but if you like write your code sensibly, you're searching everything.
Gotcha.
And then I also talk about, for example, like reports. Okay, so you can have like a SF Factory group assignment. So which SF Factory is assigned to which group? I showed you data definition flag, metadata flag. Often is just like look at the relationship, and then you can also like search for unpublishable pages. For example, if you like, if you want to identify, okay, what pages are either under development or not publishable, then you can like use a simple script to like grab all the pages that are not publishable. Here I call the is publishable method. This method is recursive in the sense that it doesn't only like look at the page itself, okay? It also look at the parent folder and all the folder up to the top. So if anything in between, okay, is not publishable, then the page is not publishable, even though the page, okay, is marked publishable. It doesn't make sense, okay, if you put a publishable page in an like unpublishable folder and you try to publish it, okay, it won't make sense. So it will check all the folders, all the folders all the way up to the base folder to determine whether the page is publishable. So you can do something like this to find all the unpublishable pages in the site if you want to.
Question.
Yep.
I don't have it in front of me, but I noticed there are seemingly two fields in the page class referring to whether it's publishable or not.
Really?
I'm trying to find it.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm in the asset. I'm in the page class. There's is publishable.
And it's published.
Yeah, I think so. What's the difference? Why are there two?
That is Cascades design. Okay, I just follow the structure of the page. Is published actually return you the last time the page was published. Let me see. Is published.
So you have get should be published and get.
Oh, get should be published is the flag. Well, let me just show you the flag that you. Okay, so when you edit a page, and when you look at system, these two flags, okay?
Right.
So the page, if marked unpublishable, then of course it's never publishable. But even when a page is marked publishable, it must be in a publishable folder first.
So that checkbox is returned by is publishable.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's publishable does more than this. It will look at the page itself,
right?
But it will also look at all the folders all the way up to the base folder.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
So it's publishable actually works if you have like a publishable page inside an unpublishable folder. It's still unpublishable.
Okay. It's kind of a tongue twister.
Only look at this flag. It starts with this flag, but it also look at all the folders.
And so what does get should be published return?
Get should be published. You just look at this one. If you call get, well, because okay, there are several things, okay, to make a page publishable. First, it must be in a publishable folder.
Right.
Okay. Second thing, the page must be publishable.
Right.
And I mean, the page must be associated with a configuration set and a content type that are publishable. So you have to have everything in place to be able to publish a page. That method only deals with this flag.
Should be published.
But it's publishable is different. It checks like folders and so on and so forth.
Oh, okay. Thanks for clarifying. I didn't realize that.
Yep.
Okay.
I also, for your information, okay, I also added some new methods to two classes just this morning related to this. They are in the contained assets and container. Let me just bring up the API documentation. In the contained asset, that's the parent class of all the assets that can be contained. Okay, I added a method this morning called is descendant of. So you can actually check, okay, whether the contained asset is a descendant of some container. So you can like check the page folder relationship or check the template folder relationship. You can use this method.
Can you give like an example?
For example, when you look at a page, okay, well, when you traverse a page, for example, you may want to say, okay, do something special if the page is contained inside a specific folder.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you want to escape, okay? You don't want to do anything with pages inside this folder. Or this folder is specific in certain way, okay? It's like news stories, okay? I want to deal with news stories in a specific way. So when I traverse the entire site, I do one thing, okay, if it's not news stories, but I do a second thing, okay, when they are news stories. So
Gotcha.
I can use this to check whether it is contained inside a specific folder, and then I do something differently.
Okay.
And this is recursive in the sense that it doesn't look at just the parent. It looks at like everything up, okay, all the way to the folder you plug in.
Okay.
So as long as this folder contains some other folders which contains this asset, then this method will return true.
Interesting.
In a container, I also added a few methods this morning. So related, okay, they are all related. For example, contains, okay. This is the other way around of like its ancestor of, well, it's contained, the method we saw a moment ago. This is like from the container to look at the asset. So you can have like this container being the ancestor of that asset. I don't care like how many containers in between, okay? As long as this container contains some other containers that contain that asset, then this method will return true.
Gotcha.
And then I have, so I have is parent of, is ancestor of, and contains, yeah. So they are like handy in the sense that, I mean, if you are working with asset tree traversal, you can look up, you can look down, and then like determine whether you want to do something or not, depending on where you are. So give you more control if you like are working with like tree traversal.
Yeah, that sounds powerful.
Okay, I would say that enough has been said about tree traversal. So, any questions about tree traversal? If I leave the topic here.
Maybe not now. Maybe there might be some questions in the future.
Okay, okay. Yeah, we can always pick up anything we want later. Okay, then I want to move to the next major topic to work with properties. When you look at, let's say page. Here I give you the entire STD class structure of a page, and everything you see here, okay, is a property. But then, I mean, we can ignore all those like simple properties like ID, site names, and so on and so forth, because they are just like basically a field, okay, containing a string. But we are also dealing with very complex properties like the metadata, and we are dealing with another complex property called structured data. Of course, okay, for pages, we also need to deal with like page configurations and things like that. So when we deal with an asset, we need to know what kind of properties can be found inside this asset type. The reason being this, normally, I will not percolate methods. I talked about like method percolation probably a few months ago. It's this thing, okay? Let's say you start with an asset, and then you look inside. For example, let me pull up template, okay? So when you look at template, there's a complex property called page regions, and then inside, well, this page region can contain like multiple page region objects. Well, normally, okay, I don't percolate the methods, okay, defined inside page region up to template, because I find it like not, well, I don't want to cluster, okay, a class, okay, with too many methods. Especially, I don't want to do this, okay, for the cascade class. So I will leave, okay, whatever property alone. if this property defines a whole bunch of methods, you go to that property and use those methods within that property. But if something is really useful, then I will percolate. Okay, that's what I meant. I will basically like copy the method from a property and move it up to make sure we understand what I'm talking about. So let's say I'm looking at PageRegion.
Sorry, Wayne.
Yep.
I don't know. I think you got cut off. Could you repeat that last sentence?
Oh, okay, okay. I want to talk about this. Okay. When you deal with an asset, there are some complex properties contained inside an asset. So that I need to like create a class to deal with that property, and then there will be like methods, okay, defined for this property. But I have to make a decision, okay, whether I should percolate those methods up, okay, to the asset. That's what I'm trying to like to talk about here.
Okay.
So let us look at the relationship between template and PageRegion. Okay. A template can contain multiple PageRegion objects, and we are looking at the PageRegion API right now. Okay. So for example, in the PageRegion, okay, I can have like get block, I can have like get format, I can have set block and then set format, and then I can also like set no block, meaning that checkbox, okay, if you check it, then no block will be like processed. So I defined a whole bunch of methods, okay, set and get methods, okay, inside a PageRegion. Now, when I work with a template, do I like percolate these methods to the template so that you can like call these methods through the template object, or do you need to like go through the template and then go through the template to retrieve all the page regions, and then you deal with each individual page region? Which do I choose? Well, let us look at template. Template. This is what I meant, okay, by let's see, by method percolation. Remember in PageRegion, okay, I define a method called setBlock.
Yep.
In template, I also define a method called setPageRegionBlock. Okay, basically like using this method to call the method inside the PageRegion. So you have to like supply me the PageRegion name, then I will get the PageRegion object, and I will call the setBlock method, okay, through the PageRegion object. This is what I meant, method percolation.
Gotcha.
So I am basically providing you a method from the asset class, and that method will actually call a method of a property class. You don't need to go through the intermediate step to call a method. This is for convenience, okay? So you don't need to like go directly to the PageRegion object to call this like get PageRegionBlock method. You can call it from the template.
So in this case, the property is a template.
The method is percolated up to the asset.
Right, but in this example, the property would be a template's region, right?
Yep.
Okay.
But I don't always do that, okay? So if you cannot find a method in an asset class, then it means, okay, I didn't do that.
Gotcha.
Okay, I would say when you like use this library long enough, you will like, at least you have to, okay, get comfortable working with properties independently. So when you work with a template, you might want to, okay, go through the template to get all the page regions objects, and then you work with each individual page region object without worrying about the template.
Right.
Okay, you have to get used to this mode of thinking. Because, well, for one thing, I don't always provide you like corresponding methods in the asset classes. For the second thing, when we come down to like metadata and structured data, you have to be able to deal with properties independently because they behave differently. I mean, they behave independently.
Right.
So you need to get into this habit of like manipulating properties by themselves without worrying about the assets.
Wing, can you use global functions to sort of encapsulate, like let's say you want to, let's just say that template regions were not percolated. Could you use a global function to, say, encapsulate the logic of setting a template region so that you could use it without having, so you could reuse it without having to write the extra code of sort of accessing the property classes?
Okay, I see what you mean. You want to use a global function to basically like to supplement method percolation, right? Basically.
Right. In the cases where it's not percolated, to simplify the amount of code that you have to write.
The problem is you cannot access the pieces inside an asset.
I see.
Even when you're working with a global function, okay, you still need to deal with I see what you mean. Of course, I mean, if you can find some reusable code, of course you can put them into a global function. But this has nothing to do with like true traversal, okay? It's just some function that you can reuse. Of course you can do that, of course. But I would, I don't know. Actually, there are two.
I didn't mean necessarily a global function as in the kind of functions you use with asset tree traversals. I just meant a function.
Yeah. Actually, if I were you, I would rather do something like this. Okay, this is actually more complicated, but more flexible as well. You extend the class. I'm talking about OOP here.
Yeah.
You extend, for example, the template class to create your own template class. Of course, I mean, you need to deal with like namespaces and so on and so forth, the whole 9 yards. But you can incorporate all the functionality of my template class, and then you can add more functionality to it.
Gotcha. Okay.
But you need to deal with like inheritance and like creating subclasses and so on and so forth. It's very complicated.
Okay. That's good to know.
Well, actually, that's one of the possible topics that we can address, okay, in the third part. But I'll leave it here right now, okay? So we can pick it up.
Make a note of it. No, I'm going to make a note of it so you don't forget.
Okay. So I use template and page region as an example, okay, to show you how when you like look at an asset, how a method from the property can percolate upward, okay, to the asset. Now, let us address, okay, the two most important classes, okay, in the library, metadata and structured data, okay. So we would like to do it slowly, just to pave the way for the discussion of data definition blocks, and pages, okay.
Okay.
So let us look at metadata first, because metadata is a lot simpler. We can talk about structured data next time. So let us look at the property class of metadata. So this is the structure of the metadata STD class, and my metadata class, okay, basically encapsulate all these pieces. It's simple in the sense that you are dealing with a lot of like so-called wired fields. So one field name, one value. So we don't need to worry too much about like the structure of these wire fields. By the way, I want to point out one thing. In a metadata object, there's another property that's not listed. Well, It's not relevant in the discussion in the sense that let me just pull it up so that you know what I'm talking about. Let us look at the metadata of a page, okay? I want to look at this is a page. No. Where's the, I should look at the metadata set, I'm sorry. Then I need to go to Common Access and look at the metadata set. So page. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Now, this field, okay, expiration folder does not work as of 7/14/2. Okay.
Really?
So, yep. No, I mean no, it doesn't work. If you use web services, okay, to deal with metadata, this field will be empty. Okay, but you don't need to worry about that because it's a bug. They have fixed it in 7/14.3, but they haven't released it yet. So I know that, okay? So I have already documented everything with methods and so on and so forth, ready to go, waiting for the release of 7.14.3, okay? But this one doesn't work until 7/14. Thank you.
Sorry.
So you won't find it here, okay, in the expiration folder because it doesn't work. Okay, and then we are dealing with dynamic fields. So now I want to go back to the distinction between, well, the dichotomy of definition and container, okay? If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me just recap. When you work with metadata and structured data and structured data node on the other, you need to worry about the so-called definition container dichotomy. I'm saying this, okay? When you deal with, on the one hand, when you deal with metadata set or data definition, you are dealing with the definition part. If you are dealing with metadata and structured data, you are dealing with the container part. They are separate, strictly, okay? There's a clear line in between. So let's say if you are trying to like set a value, okay, to a dynamic field in a metadata, let's say, okay, you want to set certain value. Well, you have to make sure, okay, the value is one of the possible values in the definition. Let's say you have a set of checkboxes or a set of radio buttons. Well, let's stick with like radio buttons, okay? For the moment, you can ask a question, okay? Is it, let's say categories, okay? And you have like only single categories per page, okay? So you have a set of radio buttons, okay, listing all the categories. Then you can have a page of either belonging to the category of like, I don't know, sports, or category related to the president, or something like that, okay? You pick one radio button. Now, let's say if you want to use web services to change the category of a page, okay? Let's say from president to sports. You have to make sure, okay, the value you pick is defined in the metadata set. Otherwise, I mean, you introduce a bug, okay? Well, a phantom node again. But of course, okay, Cascade has done a lot, Cascade did a good job with respect to metadata and metadata set. So they actually don't allow you to plug in unacceptable values. But still, you need to like make sure, okay, well, my library, okay, make sure that whenever you plug a value into a field, that field is defined in the definition. So here we are talking about two things, okay? On the one hand, what is possible in the definition. On the other hand, what you are actually plugging in to the container. So I need to worry about both parts, the definition part and the container part. Okay? Does it make sense?
Maybe with an example.
I
I don't know if
cannot
you're
give you an
planning to.
example here because we are talking about well, 6 classes actually. Okay, on the definition side, okay, my library provides you 3 classes. First is called metadata set. Let me just like grab the, I'll show you the class API. These are like metadata related, okay? So on the one hand, we have metadata set, okay? This is the definition, okay, of the metadata. But actually inside a metadata set, okay, we have the property called dynamic metadata field definitions. And then we have the singular, okay, dynamic metadata field definition. This is the definition side, okay? So in the property classes, I also have dynamic metadata field definition. Okay, and inside this class, you have like possible value. So I have a class called possible values. Okay, here. So when you define a metadata set, you start with the largest class, okay, the largest object, metadata set. Inside metadata set, okay, you have wire fields. Those you don't need to worry about. And then you have dynamic fields. Each dynamic field is associated with a set of possible values. So on this definition side, you are dealing with 3 different classes: metadata set, dynamic metadata field definition, and possible value.
Oh, okay.
From large to small.
Okay.
Okay. On the other side, well, the topmost part is called metadata. Okay. So you can only find this metadata object in pages, in blocks. You don't find metadata set because they are containers. They are not definitions.
Right.
So when you work with a page, when you work with a blog, when you work with a folder, okay, you want to deal with the metadata. You're dealing with containers.
Right.
So you deal with metadata.
Right.
Okay, but always keep in mind, okay, this metadata object corresponds to the metadata set object.
Okay.
Okay, now in the metadata, we have dynamic field corresponding to dynamic field, dynamic metadata field definition.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then we have field value corresponding to possible value.
That makes sense because you have no way of knowing, you as the library author, have no way of knowing what someone's dynamic field, what the structure looks like, what kind of fields they are. Because that's defined by the Cascade user.
Yeah, metadata set.
Or the administrator. I'm talking about dynamic fields are sort of defined. They're custom. They're like custom fields.
Uh-huh.
So that's why you have to. That's why you have sort of these extra layers of logic to look at what the definition of a data of a dynamic.
So when you plug, let's say if you plug in a value, okay, into the metadata object, I will actually go to the definition and check the possible values first. If it is not acceptable, I'll reject it.
Gotcha.
Actually, that's what I meant, okay. Cascade, Hannon Hill has done a very good job with respect to metadata because underlyingly they also have like these classes. So the mapping is quite like strict, and then you have like one mapping. So it's almost impossible, eh? Almost impossible to introduce phantom nodes.
Okay.
Because they have this strict mapping.
Gotcha.
But of course, okay, when we look at data definition and structured data is a totally different story, okay?
The Wild West.
Yes, the Wild West.
Gotcha.
Okay, so let me recap, okay, the metadata part. We have 6 classes, okay? On the definition side, we have metadata set, we have dynamic metadata field definition, and we have possible value. On the container side, we have metadata, and then dynamic field, and then field value.
Right.
So when you are working with pages and blocks, okay, or folders for that matter, you are dealing with containers. So you're dealing with those three classes, okay, metadata, dynamic field, and field value. But you always want to worry about what is possible on the other side.
So in a nutshell, if you're working with, let's say, pages and you want to, you might think, oh, I just want to change a metadata field value.
Yep.
What you're saying is it's not that easy.
You have to be careful.
Right.
It's not hard. It's not hard. You just need to understand it.
Right.
For example,
right.
if you want to, for example, okay, deal with checkboxes, you want to pass in some values, okay, to a dynamic field. Well, you have to make sure, okay, the value or values you pass in are acceptable.
Right.
Or
so,
you see an exception.
Well, you don't have that issue if you're just changing the, let's say, the name of a page asset or
no.
Or the
just
title.
Talking about wire fields, yeah.
Right,
I'm talking about dynamic fields.
Right. I gotcha.
Okay. My library provides you, okay, methods to jump in between, okay. So you can let's say, you can start with a page. You can actually grab the metadata set object if you want to. I'm talking about the definition side. You can get the metadata set object through a page. Of course, you can also get the metadata object through the page, okay? So you can actually look at both at the same time to make sure everything works properly.
Okay.
For example, I want to plug, okay, to be concrete, okay, just back to your example. I want to plug in a value, okay, into a dynamic field. Okay? Okay. I can actually go through the page object and then call a method by plugging in the identifier of the dynamic field. I'm talking about the identifier of the field. And it will return you an array of possible values. You pick one that you can use, okay? Or you can use that array to check against, okay, your value, whether it's in the array. If it is in the array, then go ahead and plug it in. If it's not in the array, it's pointless, okay? You see an exception. So you can, my library provides you, okay, methods to jump from definition to container or the other way around. But you need to know, okay, there are two sides.
What if you know the value of the radio button that you want to set?
Of course, if you know it, you can go ahead, okay? But I just want to remind you, if you have a typo,
gotcha.
If you remember, this is case sensitive. If you have a case difference, you see an exception.
Okay, gotcha.
But you can also test it, okay, whether the field exists or whether the possible value exists. You can also call methods to test that.
Okay.
Okay. I just want to make sure you understand. Okay, there are two sides to this, this topic. So you always need to worry about the definition side when you are dealing with the containers.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now this is enough, okay, to pave the way for the discussion of structured data. So let us bring up structured data. Before I do structured data, okay, I want to introduce data definition first. So for pages, for data definition blocks, okay, we also have this dichotomy between definition and container. The definition side, unfortunately, okay, there's only one class, data definition. Okay, this is unfortunate because, okay, Helen Hill doesn't really cut it up and make it more fine-grained, so that it allows all kinds of malignant possibilities. So you can do whatever you go. Again, it's the Wild West. Wow, it's scary. Okay, definition. There's only one class. Okay, data definition. So you have everything wrapped up inside. Actually, everything is wrapped up inside this XML element. Okay, everything there. Now, when you look at a page, okay, well, let us look at a page again. Of course, okay, you have the structured data object here. So a structured data object is actually the top level object containing all the nodes. Now, I introduced, okay, two terms here, okay. If I'm talking about a data definition, I will call them fields, okay. Each XML element defines a field. On the other hand, if you're talking about the container, then I'll call them nodes, okay, because that's the term given to me by Hannon Hill. So when you look at a structured data, okay, this is the topmost container containing all the nodes inside. A node can be a group node, can be a text node, can be an asset node. It can be anything, okay, like defined in Cascade. There are 15 of them. But because, okay, we have this loose mapping from data definition on the one hand and structured data nodes on the other, okay? So there's no one-one mapping here. That's why, okay, everything goes. And I can also understand why. Because, okay, if you look at a metadata set, you don't have nesting. I'm saying you cannot nest one field inside another field. When you have like a drop down, when you have radio buttons, or when you have like checkboxes, they are always at the root level as far as metadata is concerned. But for structured data, you can have like any like number of layers of like nesting.
Right.
So it's hard to keep track of everything, okay? I understand that. And probably that's the major reason why they just, okay, leave it as is, okay? So you do whatever you want, okay?
Gotcha.
But as you already know, okay, my library will actually check the definition part when you like deal with data and containers. So when you like try to like plug in something illegal in the sense, okay, it's not defined in the definition part, I will reject it right away. But just to like to recap, okay, web services allow you to do anything you want by creating phantom nodes, creating phantom values, and so on, if they are not defined.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the introduction to these two major families of like asset classes and property classes. Okay, so one is like metadata related, the other is structured data related. Now, I want to go back to the topic I introduced last time, and then like recap, like I brought up again this time, meaning you have to be able to deal with properties alone without worrying about the asset. For example, when you work with well, let me make it simple, okay? A data definition block, okay, a DD block. So when you work with a DD block, you have a structured data property inside. You can actually like, okay, you start with the DD block, you call the method get structured data, then you get the structured data object. Then you can actually work with this structured data object independently without worrying about the DD block. Of course, at the end, okay, when you are done with everything, you still need to go back to the DD block and call edit. But before you do that, you can work with the structured data object independently without worrying anything about like in the DD block.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, that's one thing you need to know. The second thing, this is actually the fun part. You can actually give it a facelift. Meaning this, you can read a DD block, okay? You actually create a new structured data object. You can create a new one, okay? And replace the old one.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Yep. You can do that.
Can you do that?
That's why this is the fun part. Okay, let me recap, okay? You can start with a page, or you can start with a DD block. You can, okay, call like a call get structured data. Of course, you can manipulate the data, okay? But you can also call set structured data. and plug in a totally different new structured data into the asset. Okay, let me remind you, okay, for pages, it won't work easily because the structured data is hooked up with a data definition, which is hooked up with a content type. So it's controlled by the content type, okay? But for a data definition block, a DD block, okay, you can actually freely replace the structured data object without any restriction.
Whoa.
Meaning, you can change everything in the DD block, including the data definition.
Huh.
You can change a DD block, okay, used for a slideshow to something totally different, okay? Like a whole bunch of like fields, okay, with like contact information. You can do that.
Does that create phantom nodes though?
You can.
Okay, and I guess the follow-up to that is that a bad thing with blocks?
This is actually a necessary mechanism to fix phantom nodes.
Okay.
Now, phantom nodes, okay, let me just recap, okay, what a phantom node is. Actually, there are two types, okay? But, well, the more I think about it, the more, like, fine-tuned and, well, I need to write code to deal with, like, all kinds of, like, problems. So lately, I, like, differentiate two types of phantom nodes, okay? What I call type A is this. You start with the definition, and then you look at a structured data, okay, corresponding to this definition. Because the structured data, okay, stores the definition's ID. So I know like what it corresponds to. So you have a definition, and then you have a container. Now, let's say if you have something inside the container that is not licensed by the definition. You have some data, okay, a node containing something that is not defined. I call it a phantom node of type A. Okay, so something extra, something malignant, something not licensed. This is called type A. On the other hand, you can also have this situation. It's defined in the definition, but somehow it's missing from your container. This can happen too. I call it type B. Well, how do you create type B, for example? It's easy. You start with a definition, and then you create a block out of it. Once you have a block, you add another field to the definition. Then the block won't have that new definition.
Right.
But remember, with respect to web services.
Right.
So if you like do it manually, okay, using okay, field is invisible, no matter what you do.
Okay.
Okay, this is called type B. Now, I also want to bring in, okay, another term, phantom value. I never really like talked about phantom value until I ran into this problem. Okay, in a data definition, okay, you can give a field, okay, a default value. For example, if you like deal with like a set of radio buttons, okay, you can set the default to, let's say you have yes and no, okay, you can set the default to no. Okay.
Okay.
Now, you can like start with title case, okay, so you have like uppercase Y and then lowercase es, and then uppercase N and then lowercase o. You can have like two values there defined in the definition. And then you put the definition into use, okay? So you create a block out of this definition. Later on, you decide to change the default value from uppercase Y to lowercase y. So you have like lowercase yes. That's the default. Now, in your block, you have a phantom value with the uppercase y.
Gotcha.
And it cannot be fixed even if you manually like edit this block in the backend. You cannot fix that. You have to manually select that button to erase the old value, the uppercase y.
Okay.
Okay, so I have like I wrote some code, okay, to do with phantom values as well. So far, okay, I talked about three things, okay. Phantom nodes of type A, meaning it's something not licensed by the definition, something extra, something that can be malignant. Phantom nodes of type B,
Uh-oh.
like phantom E, but missing a value that doesn't exist in the definition. Okay. Now, if you have like pages or blocks or whatever containing either phantom nodes or phantom values, and you want to fix them, how?
Wing, be there?
What?
Oh, Wing,
Yeah.
sorry, you've been cutting out. Can you try unplugging your mic and then plugging it back in?
Oh, sure. Okay.
Hey, Wing, are you there?
Uh-oh. No, his screen is there. He's back.
Can't hear you. I wonder if his settings changed when he unplugged.
Well, I think he was trying to fix that with the system preferences. He's probably listening to everything that we say.
Probably.
So to fill the gap, I deal with the type B phantom nodes all the time.
Really?
Oh yeah, because with a, for instance, if you're using web service, not his library, but you're using a web service to help. No, we still can't hear you. To upload or create a new asset, if you don't explicitly include every possible field as part of that asset creation, then they simply don't exist in the as part of the page. And so even if, for instance, in a form that I have to explicitly make sure that a blank is put in, even if a value isn't chosen from my form, so that the field exists in the page when you go into the page and edit it.
Really?
Otherwise, then, if you try to look at that page up from a web service, another web service, it doesn't know what to do with the lack of that field. It just sees it as non-existent, and I'll get errors unless I'm explicitly trying to work around it. So I'm always very careful about making sure.
Can you hear me now?
Ah, yes.
Okay.
You're back.
Okay, I can hear you. Okay.
Well, that's so. Even if the page, let's say the asset you're creating, let's say it's a page, is associated with a data definition that has those values for those fields, it's still unless you. Okay. Wow.
So Wang, I was just saying that I deal with the type B phantom nodes all the time.
Meaning you are adding new fields all the time?
Well, no. It's what I've noticed is that when you're using a web service, and not your library, but stuff I've done in the past, and unless I explicitly state when I'm creating a new asset using a web service, every field, even if that field is blank, then it will not exist in the asset inside of Cascade.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're then looking at it from a subsequent web service, trying to read the values, for instance, then unless I'm checking to make sure for checking for errors, then I might get errors because, I'm looking for a field that simply doesn't exist. And it's something I've been having to be very careful of.
Yeah. Well, I wrote some code to deal with both types of Phantom nodes just like last month or so, and I want to bring up the discussion so that to pave the way for like later discussion, but the mechanism is this: you can start with a page, start with a blog, okay, a DD blog. I want to like for the moment I want to like restrict my discussion to the type B first, meaning something missing. Okay, so to answer Eric your question, so something is missing. Okay, now how do we deal with that using web services? Well, for me, it's very simple. I start with the data definition. Okay, start with the definition first. Out of the definition, I can create a structured data object, which contains everything it's supposed to contain, with all the nodes inside. Of course, all the data is missing. Okay, but I have all the nodes inside. Now, these two structured data objects have exactly the same definition, with one, okay, with less fields, one with more. I just copy all the data from one to the other. Okay, so the new healthy structured data object will have all the old data, but with some new nodes, okay, without data. Now you can plug in the data if you want to, and you use the healthy one to replace the old one by calling set structured data. That's what I meant. Okay, you can actually replace the whole thing.
Oh, that's cool.
That's how you fix the problem.
Okay, now I just have one totally unrelated question.
Yep.
But I noticed you use terms like malignant and healthy, which I find really interesting. Is that at all related to? Are the doctors were starting to rub off on you? What's going on? Or is it just random coincidence?
No, not random. Well, more than a year ago, I remember I presented my web service library, and I talked about a nightmare. And back then, probably the only person who was scared was Elvin. You can actually bury anything inside pages, inside DD blocks, without end users' knowledge, without developers' knowledge, and they can behave really, really crazily. They can be really malignant.
I have a recollection from talks with Penny that when they have done some work for clients, say creating new fields inside a data definition and moving the data from one area to another, that they take advantage of the phantom node concept.
Yeah, I know people do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it can be dangerous. I mean, of course, if you know what's inside the database, okay, if you know that, of course, you can always like retrieve the old data and like use the old data to populate new nodes, okay, of course. But what I'm trying to say is this: you can also bury something not that desirable, okay, inside pages and blocks and so on, and catch people by surprise. You can do that too.
Oh, that's interesting.
Or you can do it to yourself.
Eric, what would be an example of something you would want to hide?
I don't know about want to hide, but in the case of Penny at Hen and Hill, so one of the things they did is, so until an asset is edited, even if you remove a field from a data definition, that data still exists associated with the page. So then you can use a web service to grab the old data and put it into the new data definition field without having to worry about having accidentally erased everything just by removing the previous field from the data definition. So that's a way to take advantage of it. But to Wang's point, I could totally see you could plug in data that may be evaluated by another web service, for instance, even though you will never see that data when looking at the page. And that could be a really big way to screw things up.
Yep. Well, Eric Espana, remember you asked me like why my library doesn't like remove old data. That's precisely the reason, because I know people actually rely on that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
I can see
That's
that.
why my library doesn't deal with like phantom nodes implicitly, meaning I don't do it for you unless you ask for it.
Right.
So I actually provide you several classes to enable you to load pages and blocks, okay, without complaints. So I'm saying my library actually allows you to load a page with phantom nodes. That's how you fix them, okay? Otherwise, I mean, if my library cannot deal with them at all, then there's no way to fix them. But in order to fix them, I have to provide you a way allowing you to load pages and DD blocks with phantom nodes. Type A or type B doesn't matter, so that you can fix them.
Okay.
So I'm saying I have a systematic and formal way of dealing with like hidden data or missing definition and so on and so forth without relying too much, okay, on something implicit. I provide you explicit way to deal with them.
Right. Right. Yeah, I remember seeing at least some search scripts for searching for phantom nodes.
Okay, I would say that that's enough for today. We will like pick up data definition and structured data and metadata. I mean, again, next time when we talk about DD blocks and pages, okay, we'll need to like delve into these topics again and again, and to look at the details. And we'll see, for example, how to do the facelift, okay, how to like replace the whole thing. We'll see that later.
Okay, sounds good. Well, yeah, I guess we'll have to figure out a date for the next one. We can do that.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks, Wing. This has really been interesting and insightful.
Well, I've been waiting forever, I mean, to be able to talk about these topics, because I have to like talk about a lot of other things first before we can move on to like phantom nodes. Actually, next time I need to like go into like data definition like in details, so that we can like talk about the fully qualified identifiers, for example, and how my library use like this notion extensively.
Yes, yeah. That's there was a question on the handheld.
And thank you for answering that.
Yeah, well, I kind of learned a little bit just by trying to answer it. So.
Well, for Eric Gawker, we were talking about a question raised in the discussion forum of Handheld in the web service, whatever. So someone like asked, okay, well, Eric, you answer exactly what question you answered.
Yeah, well, so Eric, another Cascade user, I guess stumbled upon Wing's library and was trying to work with data definition fields, but was only, had a data definition with like fields under groups, and well, without really going into the details, he wasn't putting the full path to the field, including the groups. So that was sort of the problem, and you refer to that as fully qualified names, or
Fully qualified identifier.
Fully qualified identifier.
Yeah, I was in China. I couldn't like do anything.
Yeah. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
we'll pick up this topic next time.
Sounds good.
All right.
Well, yeah. Thanks again, Wing.
Oh, you're welcome. So when do we need to like? When do we want to meet again to talk about data definition and so on?
Well, we've been doing it sort of monthly, so
okay.
I think I'm fine with keeping with that.
Okay. Now, in May, I won't be around between the 19th and the 28th. So the second half of May. So
Okay.
either before the 19th or in June.
Eric, does either do you have a preference?
What were those 2 dates again?
From the 19th to the 28th.
So we're looking at June.
Probably June, yeah.
Probably best for me would be probably the first Monday in June would be all right,
That's okay for me.
which would be the 6th.
That sounds good.
So for the moment, temporarily, they set it to early, the first Monday. What's the date? That will be the 6th, yeah.